Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar tonight. My name is Gavin Mohan. I'm the marketing partner for the great organizations that we have here tonight. We're super excited. Today's theme is Let's Rock 2021 and make sure we know our numbers and all the ways to do that. We're really excited to have Dr. Dave here from the Dental Buying Network, as well as Lisa and Paul, of course, from the Transitions Group. And it's been quite a year, quite a long year. We're almost getting to that end, and I've been really proud to be a marketing partner for both of these organizations all year, and it's really great to see everyone come together. In case you haven't been to one of the webinars before, I'm just going to quickly go over how we run it. So I'll be here for technical support. All of the email reminders you've gotten this week have been coming from me and my team, the RIPE team. And the way we're going to be running it tonight is that if you have any questions for the speakers, feel free to use the Q&A box. It's at the bottom of your screen. It's a separate tab from the chat room. So we're going to be using the chat room for more of informal chat amongst all of the audience members here today, all of the participants here today. So feel free to put informal stuff in there. And if you have a more formal question, there's a Q&A box. When you're using the chat room, make sure that you use the blue tab to say who you want to speak to, just the panelists, everyone in the webinar, you can choose. I'll be running the chat room. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask me there, and I'll be happy to help anytime during the webinar. I'm going to pass it over now to Paul, Chief Operating Officer of Transitions, and he can take over from there.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Gavin. Paul Pennick from Transitions Group, Chief Operating Officer. Thrilled to be here tonight. I want to say a special thank you to Gavin, who's been an amazing support to both Transitions and DBN over the course of the entire year. The work that you guys have done at RIPE has been instrumental to allowing us to provide our services and get word out to our customers and help support them. So thank you very much, Gavin. We are very appreciative. Really excited about the program tonight, and I want to thank everybody for joining us. We've got Dr. David Burnham from the DBN, who's here to talk about the services that they can offer, and he has some exciting news that is new to share with the membership. On the Transitions side, I've been involved with Transitions since late summertime, and I've been fortunate to be here to kind of see the development of the Patient Zebra program and see the impact that it's having on the practices that we service. And so we're really excited to share with everybody tonight how impactful this can be to allow you to understand where you are from a metrics perspective in your practice, and to allow us to enter a practice, interpret the metrics, and help chart a course forward. So we've got lots of great information to share tonight. Thanks again for joining us, and I'm going to pass it right over to Dr. Burnham.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Paul, for that lovely introduction. This is actually really exciting. I'm glad we're working collaboratively tonight. And I know a lot of people have heard me speak before, but we do have some new stuff, as Paul said. So I'm just going to share my screen really quickly here. And I'll launch into it. All right. Can everyone see that? Am I up, Gavin?
Yep.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. So our vision in the Dental Buying Network is to help dentists, independent dentists, get preferred pricing, normally only available to larger organizations or groups. We want to actually provide real tangible benefits and help people save or earn money that they couldn't do alone. And that earning money is what Lisa's here to help with. She's a big part of that for us. So that's why I'm really excited about this today. And we want to push hard for more and better deals as our membership grows and our collective power increases. I'm going to link us directly to the website right now. And I just kind of want to walk through a little bit of what it is and who we're working with. There's a few things I wanted to highlight. So for people who are already members of the network that are on this this webinar tonight. If you haven't done the guided tour, it's at this link at the top of the website, and that will take you to a calendar where you can book a meeting. Doesn't have to be an hour, but you can walk through one with one of our staff members and kind of maximize the benefits of what we offer. I also wanted to talk about, just highlight that we have added a lot of new companies. We have, I think, 54 or 55 vendors that we deal with, which have been really good partners for us. Our deal with Straumann, for example, is growing. We'll be announcing new elements of that deal in the near future. We recently added Dentsply Sirona, which is right here. If you haven't taken advantage of our offering with Dentsply Sirona, you really need to. It's really, really good, and they've come to the table really strong, like in an incredible way with our group. And then, we could talk also about ClearCorrect on the clear aligner side, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later, about clear aligners in general, not ClearCorrect, but just briefly. And then Propel Ortho as well, Linen Plus. We've got all sorts of new things. So I just wanted to highlight that. Now I got to get back out of the presentation. No, back into the presentation. Here we go. So I wanted to show some of the things that are happening right now as well. So we are running deals of the week. If you're not getting emails, if you haven't seen what we're doing, this is an example of a deal of the week that we have running now until December 23rd. And these are incredible prices from Visions. The Pioneer headphones on the top left are listed on their website at $299 right now, and we're getting them at $100. And each of these represents an equally or near equally good savings. So a few other things that I'm excited to talk about is we are launching today, right now. We've started partnering with Align Tech, who produces Invisalign. The way we're entering into our agreement with them, or our deal with them, is through their scanners. So we have special pricing on their iTero machines, and you can reach out to us for more details on that. Pretty much, it's an additional discount on top of whatever discount or whatever deal you can work out with them. You get an additional benefits from it that they've never really done before, from what they tell me. So we're excited to start working with Invisalign and with iTero, and we'll have more to talk about that in the new year. We're also doing a deal right now with National Dental Innovations with their molecular iodine rinse. My program director in prosthodontics actually just published a study showing that iodine, a 30-second rinse, will actually deactivate COVID-19. It was the first study that showed a mouth rinse that would actually kill specifically COVID-19. So I'm a big believer in this, and I wanted everyone to know that we've got something with NDI, and we're trying to get the word out as much as possible. Not only that we have good pricing, but that we have something that can help keep you and your patients and your staff safe. So a few of the highlights that I wanted to point out today is that you don't have to sign any other contracts unless you want to. You're still eligible for these discounts. We don't obligate you to spend with anyone. There's no penalties for spending outside of the network. Typically, you don't have to change how you do things. I just wanted to keep it simple. We want to maximize efficiencies for you, minimize time spent hunting for deals, waiting for conferences to order, overstocking because you're picking up everything you can during a conference. Oftentimes, you can get similar pricing year round, and that's what we're shooting for. And like I said before, if you participate in a guided tour of our site, you can see how we can help, and we can show you and guide you for what's right for your practice. Or you can just assign a staff member to do that if you want to save time to focus on the dentistry and focus on the big picture stuff that Lisa's going to talk about. So pretty much our future plans is we want to have more events like this. We want to make waves in the industry for smaller independent offices and give them a voice. We want to rival the corporations, and we want to grow. We're moving across Canada now, and it's going to go faster and bigger. And we really just want to impact your bottom line in every realm of your life, dental, professional, lifestyle, whatever you're looking for. So essentially, our pitch that we say all the time, or our feeling, is that teaming up with us is a vote in favor of the small independent business model in dentistry. And that's what we're here to help you guys maintain. So we're going to kick it. You don't have to ask me questions now unless you want to, or we could save those for the end. or if you don't have questions, you can just go, you can click the guided tour and do it at your own leisure. That's fine too. But we're excited now. I mean, that's all I've got to say. It's very simple. We just want to help make your lives better and easier and team up together. And that's our whole thing. So without any further ado, I'm going to stop screen sharing.
Okay, my turn.
Your turn, Lisa.
Sorry.
Dave, we did have a question come in, but
Sure.
it can.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay.
So the question for Dr. Burnham is, what does the buying network provide me that Patterson, Shine, and Sinclair do not?
Well, we've got deals with 54 different vendors. So like we've got lifestyle offerings, not just dental sundries. We've got dental equipment, lifestyle, and independence. So, I mean, you can get better pricing with Patterson, for example, or Sinclair, or even Henry Shine if you purchase equipment, but they'll make you sign a contract and you're signing your life away to them for the next 5 years. You have complete independence with us. Also, by virtue of the fact that you're teaming up with a group of dentists, what we talk to all our vendors about is we want deals that a dentist couldn't get on their own. So that's the only way we'll sign a contract, essentially, with a company. We might get beat here or there, but we find that very, very rarely, and it's usually only on exceptional circumstances. And as we grow, most of our vendors, we're under contract that our discount grows with our membership. So as we bring more value to you over time, which you're not going to find anywhere else. So not alone anyways.
Awesome. And one other quick one that just came in. How much can my clinic save through the network versus Sinclair, Shine, or Patterson?
That's a
That's a hard question. I'd say do the guided tour. I mean,
Yeah.
Our goal at the outset was a $20,000 number a year. That's what we were shooting for. It really depends on your practice, where you spend your money, what kind of dentistry you do. If you're willing to take advantage of all we have to offer, you'll save a lot more. If you're really rigid on the products and services you offer, you'll still save a lot, but not as much. If you're willing to work with some of our practice growth teammates in terms of marketing or practice management consulting, like with Lisa, for example, the sky's the limit, because then we're not just talking about saving $10,000 or $20,000. We're talking about making hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we have ways to get into those kinds of growth opportunities at a lower price point as well. So it's a tough question. If you do the guided tour, we can answer them more specifically for your practice and talk about details. And involved with that too is a non-disclosure agreement. So we're under contract not to disclose specific discounts without an NDA, which you can also find at the bottom of the website. So that was a long answer saying.
it's a hard one. That's a tough one.
It is, but our number that I set out from the beginning was 20,000, and that's what we strive for. And that may be a number that we reach next year, as our discounts grow and our membership grows. But that's our price point we're looking for.
And Dave, I can bridge into and interject our relationship at Transitions with the Dental Buying Network, because we've never been affiliated really formally with the Dental Buying Network, is through your partner Bronco, who's been with us for the whole 240 days of the COVID survival guide that Transition's been providing for Canadian dentistry. And I looked at it that it's not just about dollars. You're saving time, you're maximizing energy, and we got to preserve the solo practitioner in this country. And the solo practitioner is going to find it harder and harder. As much as supplies is just one of 4 key expenses, supplies is what people tend to look at. And I think supplies and inventory should be probably 1 to 3% of our effort. We need to focus oftentimes when practices aren't profitable, unless they've had a shutdown or no cash flow. It's not necessarily the expenses that are hurting them. It's they're not bringing in enough on the top line to justify the costs that are fixed for a lot of dental practices. So I appreciate that you see more to it than just stuff, cotton rolls, and gauze, that you're looking at the whole compass of the well-being. I call it the Mandela compass of 4 points of a dentist. And through this COVID survival, we've learned that we're better together than we are apart. And, whether it's not about going against corporate dentistry, they're there, they're going to take the market however they take it. But I think it's how do we preserve the small entrepreneurs, it's not even such small, even the group practices.
Yeah.
How do we preserve that? And how do we have an even balance of healthcare and access for Canadians? Because we are proudly, and with all of us, with Ontario going back into full lockdown again, dentistry finally is essential.
Yeah.
It's one of the biggest wins. I said to Paul, I can die after this pandemic, not from COVID, from exhaustion.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Gavin, because they're with me, we were there 14, 18 hours a day. Bronco, you all were there supporting all of us through these different stages. And now that we're into rebuild, it's going to take creativeness, and it can't be done alone. It can't be.
And you've hit on so many important things, Lisa. And, the corporate point you made is not that we're anti-corporation, but they've shown proof of concept that by having a large group, you have buying power and leverage. And so the obvious question is, why can't the independent dentist? And that's what we're trying to prove, and we are proving it.
Fair's fair.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right. 100%.
Yeah. So I think 240 days. Gavin, can you believe it? 240 days, honey. We've been looking at each other. So everyone's really excited for New Year's. And I'm like, I'm going to be such a lonely Christmas. I hope next year is going to be like, I'm a suffocating extrovert. So I've really welcomed the Zoom calls, meeting all great people. And I think if anything, what the pandemic's taught us is, how about the next decade, we work with like-minded individuals who are there for the same purposes, and not everyone has to be part of our club. It's not right for everyone, but if we like-minded, we have mutual respect, and we're all in it for the right reasons. And I think that's where we're at, whether someone likes, a certain particular product, or whether they like to be a consultant, or they want to grow, but they don't know how. I mean, there's all kinds of other lifestyle things that you have, Dave, that I don't think many other buying groups do, is what in my experience.
That's right. And we're actively looking to expand those offerings. So we have things that are coming too, that are in the works. And so we're not resting on our laurels, I guess is what I'm saying. So.
Yeah. And we've seen our 240 odd some days has shown that dentistry needs to come together. Gavin, the 700-800 people we had on town halls every 2 weeks for months and months and months, is sometimes dentistry didn't know what to do. So where are we really today going into the next year? Because this is about the future. This isn't about rehashing all the things we just lived. We're all part of it. But I think, where is dentistry today? Most practices, the catch-up is complete. I can tell you, in our transitions family, every one of our practices is back to pre-COVID plus growth. They're going to end this year. And that's because they didn't sit around for months and watch Netflix. They were proactive. The leaders stepped up. They got their facilities ready. We all dealt together with the confusion of the provincial changes, the colleges, the hygiene versus, we're all going to look back on this, and we're going to have a great party someday on all the learnings, but also on the effort and the work that went into it. So when I say the catch-up is complete, dentistry had a big incline because they had they had to cancel different provinces, different time frames. But when I say it's complete, if it's not, then you need to look at your practice and your systems and your playbook, because it should be complete now with the catch-up of the patients that didn't have access to care. The most proudest, I think, of everything, and all of us on this call who are passionate about dentistry, is we are an essential service. Patients missed us. The media did good pieces, and then they did negative pieces, but it was more still, any publicity for dentistry would be better than nothing. And I believe they see us now as an integral part of their health care. I've never seen the population of this country and heard from all of my coaches and clients how health conscious the Canadian is. And for dentistry to show the resilience, Paul and I have one goal at Transitions next year, is to prove to every banker, funder, everyone that dentistry is pandemic proof. There might have been a short lull, but it's back up better than it's going to be. And I will tell you, success by accident is no longer an option. It's never been a time where practices do need, there's been massive changes with the COVID protocols. I'm extremely proud of dentistry. I consider it one of the most sterile places in healthcare. I tell my friends, I'd have open heart surgery in an operatory of a dental office right now. It is, and you're not going to hear about a lot of disease transmission. I don't think I've heard yet of a COVID transmission happening in a dental practice. I think we do, though, need to go into January when we come back to operations, being cognizant of our teams. What's really the big thing after the reopening that's hurting practices is when team members get complacent, they eat together, they're not always wearing their PPE. That's our danger. And we want to reiterate it. I've got every dentist saying 7 more days, team. Just you can go out with each other next year. Like just keep the social distancing, keep on your PPE, because we are geared up to treat every patient like they're positive for COVID, no matter how you look at it. I can say dental auxiliary, the admin teams especially, are in some exhaustion. I think a lot of the screening fell on the admin in the front desk office to be able to implement those changes. But I think overall, basically, I watch the news once a week. Otherwise, the death meter would really try to suck your optimism. But I think overall, the world's exhausted with this. And I think dental teams aren't any different. So those teams taking a break, coming back into January, we're going to really need to work on morale. Never before have I seen dental team members demanding organization from their leader. They're coming to their dentist going, we can't work in chaos anymore. We can't just wing it. Like, we got to have some kind of systems here, or some kind of, like, what's the game plan? Not what's the game plan for, is COVID going to be gone, or what's going to happen, but what's the game plan for how do we get through this? So I think we can't bring that exhaustion into 2021, or it does have impact on the numbers. The law of money and the numbers is very, very, very clear. You put the people first, the money comes. And dentistry is a human capital business with two out of 5 parts every day being people. The health of the dental team. You'll notice, Dr. Dave, I don't call them staff. My joke is staff is an infection. but we'll get you there. That'll be part 2. Because I know Bronco's laughing in the background going, he just said staff. She's going to say something. You didn't warn it. But I think we've done it. Over communicating with patients not going to end. And I call it's patients don't need to understand. They need to overstand. And that's caused massive, and when dental practices say, we've already communicated that 10 times, I go, communicate it 10 more. They need to see that we're an integral part of their oral health as a gateway to overall body wellness, that we're safe, and that we're the place to come even when the rest of the world has shut down. And the great news is, even in going back to lockdown, dentistry was not told they have to shut down. And that's a big win. That's a huge win for people to see us as essential. Not only the government, but the patients, and know that we're safe. So what do we want to talk about? 2021 for transitions is navigating the road to practices that want to truly be pandemic proof, but it doesn't happen by accident. There needs to be strategy and a roadmap, game plan. And so we partnered with a wonderful, amazing company called Patient News. They've been in dentistry for decades, for doing marketing and helping dental practices in North America grow their new patients. But the entrepreneur Patient News and I got together, and he said, what do you think something dentistry needs they don't have? And I said, dentistry's got to get rid of the binders, all these reports. I said, and practice management systems, and I'm sorry if I offend anyone, are not getting any better. They've flatlined on the way they operate the practice, and being able to look at your metrics. Can you program something to go in and pull out the relevant information from a practice management system that could be and tangible for a dentist to make intelligent decisions, set some goals for a better future, and be able to look at their performance, not to feel bad about them, but to start where you are, and then that which is measured and tracked will guarantee an increase of 10 to 15% by human awareness. I'd love to tell you that practice management's changing. Transitions has been growing dental practices in this country for over 20 years. And the practice management playbook is not really that different. It's just, we don't use them. So the Zebra is a way that the analytics are a way to know we work on 3 rules of change at Transitions. If it's working, do more of it. If it's not working, get out of your own sanity and do something different. And if you don't know if it's working or not, find out. And I will tell you, number 3 is where we work the most at. Avoidance and denial, that I'm just wanted to be a dentist, that's valid, but we're not a nonprofit. And I think if we picked out some key things, I'm going to go through them rather quickly, because every member of the Dental Buying Network, as our partners also, can have a complimentary snapshot of Zebra and a 30 to 60 minute complimentary call with myself or one of my expert coaches to be able to give you some tips and some points with no obligation to go into coaching or consulting, although we have many different options with e-learning and other ways to learn with blended learning. So this is not about a pitch. This is about if you take 1 or 2 metric and you didn't know how it's performing and you went into your practice and found out, or if you look at what's not working quantitatively with the numbers, then how do you create a way to find out how to get it to work? So let's go into our 3 key. I mean, this began with the mission and the vision of how do we create something that, really, what did this pandemic teach us? It taught us a lot of things, but it taught us to choose our response, focus on what's important, and create action. No continuing education does any good if we're just going to listen for an hour after a long day in dentistry, go to sleep and wake up and keep doing things the way that we always did. So we call it behavior change. Our action is not what you say, but what you do as a result of that. So what do I mean by respond? Wow, we've seen so many different responses. I remember when I was in Mexico and they said dentistry shut down. I don't think I spoke for 2 days, wondering what's going to happen. And I had a choice. We had a choice. I said to my team at Transitions, we have a choice to go into our basements and stay at home like dentistry, and we won't be coming out of it with them. Or we can look at our attitude. We can take every day as a dynamic. I got excited. I love change. I do change for sport. I thrive on change, but I think every day was different. And the people that had the attitude of, let's not let this get us, let's not wallow because we're told we're not essential, ordered to basically shut down. And so many dentists were so distraught watching their employees skip home thinking they're getting a vacation. They weren't so happy 2 months later or 3 months later with that decision. But I think, how do you handle change? And change has storming that comes with it. There's no question. So we did the COVID playbook for dentistry. So they had guidelines, in-service training, COVID cycle of care on our website. Every single practice that we work with that's had a surprise audit by occupational health or public health has passed. And passed to a point that after we leave them in the virtual parking lot for 10 minutes, and they're wowed that we even understood that, once they come in and see what dentistry's done to prepare to reopen, they're blown away. They leave. They basically say, we're good. Okay, this is good. You've showed us all of the things that you've done. I'm very proud of dentistry, actually. So the COVID playbook was a whole separate thing we had to create on the fly and keep up with the daily changes and the weekly changes, 4 hours, follow time, donning, doffing. Those words are going to be in our dreams for a very long time as we learned how to do those. But I think, what is your goals? You can't have a better future if you look backwards. We can't move forward looking out of the rearview mirror. So what is your goals? It's interesting. 3% of people that take the time to set and write their goals contribute to 97% of the wealth in this country. And people say to me all the time, how is that possible? Well, creating a goal is one part of it, but taking the time to write it where it's specific and measurable and be able to evaluate it with a group of people who are part of achieving it is where the results come from. So for 2021, I highly recommend you take the time between now and New Year's. What are the goals for you to be better than you were in 2020, even with pre-COVID, or even write a goal to be higher, It's not all about the dollars. You know, goals come in percentages, they come in people, they come in numbers, and they come in dollars. So what are the goals that you have? And then if you want to run those goals, what does a coach do? A coach takes the goals you want for yourself and holds the vision at the end of it for you to be able to move through it. We don't do it for you, you do it, but we hold it out there for you, as opposed to maybe a consultant who comes in telling you the 10 things that they know the best of and that you shouldn't have to do it. It doesn't go over really well, especially in change and as we're rebuilding. You know, if you think of what really dentistry, if you took it into, I get asked for one thing all the time. I feel like sometimes I said, I'm not Oprah. There's more than one thing. Dentistry doesn't have one answer to anything. But if I said, what are some key things for you to reflect on that are the absolute needed focus for next year, is your loyalty of your patients. And patients will be loyal to practices that communicate. The practices that did not keep connected with their team and did not keep connected with their patients on an ongoing matter through all of this are the ones that are having a hard time rebuilding. So how loyal are your patients? And we're going to talk about where you find that information, because that's a behavioral concept, but looking at your active patients. Frequency. What is the frequency of visits of your patients? How often have they been coming in your practice, and how do you reiterate and improve that for next year? The acceptance. Are patients saying a yes with a smile on their face, willing to pay you more than it costs you to serve them, to have ideal treatment recommendations for the health of the gums, the teeth, the jaw joint, and the smile, and measuring case acceptance? That's absolutely critical. We can't have a better future if we don't know how we're performing. And we can show you 1,000 times over the last decade, practices that monitored and didn't even necessarily make any changes still had growth. Can
I ask a question?
Yes.
How do you, because I was talking to a friend the other day about consulting, consultants, and he said, he goes, yeah, but I don't want to lose the like personal feel of my practice. I don't want it to feel like a consultant's practice. So how, and you know, when we talk about these things and focusing on metrics, you know, how do you maintain that personal feel of the practice while also being more numbers focused and you know, changing things? Like, I am a goal oriented person, but if I suddenly change, am I going to lose that personal touch?
Yeah. So I think losing the personal touch. So here's the thing. There's not any $1 million businesses that just show up 5 minutes before they treat the human race and wing it. If you really think of it like that, I mean, so when you say that, I don't know what you mean by a consultant practice. I mean, is there metrics and is there team involvement in measuring things? That often leads to job fulfillment more than it does feeling like a consultant. But I want to say a consultant, you know, someone told me one time on a plane, it's funny, you just triggered. They said, you know what the definition of a consultant is someone that charges you all kinds of money to take your watch to tell you what time it is. And I said, well, no offense, sir, but if you knew how to read your watch, you wouldn't need us. And he laughed. And I said, but here's the thing. A coach is someone that facilitates when I say facilitates you and the dental team. If you think of dentistry now, no dentist can work without a team. And a team can make or break a dentist. I'm sure, Dr. Burnham, your team would tell you when you leave the room with your white coat, all your PPE and your big googly eyes, the first thing the patient does is look at that team member and say, like, what did he say? Would you have your dentistry done here? Is he any good? Should I do this? And I think we start with the people first. We build the leadership culture and the style. Then we work with the synergy of the team and bring together the best of all their strengths to be able to create the game plan. It's no different than putting together a football team or any other team. Is a leader's goal. I say a leader without followers is just someone taking a walk, right? But oftentimes the teams are craving direction. They're craving, you know, you think dentists. So why is it? It's not so much why are we better and different, because good coaches can do this. Good coaches say, let's define what it is you want for your vision and your future. Let's reverse engineer back what it's going to take to get that. But it's their vision. It's not ours. It's not ours. It's their vision. So having a consulting feel, is there some tracking of some dollars? Yes, because you know what? Once the employees understand, you wouldn't be happy if payroll wasn't met and your check didn't go through. And it's not about it being a good or bad thing, but it's that which is measured is going to get better. And dentistry is like a bus with no seats. They put all these people on the bus. They start driving. No one knows where they're going, let alone how we're going to get there and what seat I sit in. So I think working with, we don't do any change or work with the numbers until we worked with the people. And that's the difference. That's where we have guaranteed results. Every client that works with us gets 3 times return on their coaching fee in the second year of working with us, or I'll pay them back. No one does that. But why can we do it? Is because we put the people first. We build the strengths of the team, and they're involved in the management model, the structure, the daily operations, and understanding how they contribute. And when someone can leave at 5 o'clock and say, you know what, I now know I had 10% downtime in my hygiene schedule today, I met goal, they're going to be more fulfilled to come back the next day.
So you will customize the metrics, the tracking to match the person rather than trying to change the person or the people to match the metric that you're trying to track.
Yes.
I think that's a consultant feel office is one where they have us.
They're putting you into their mold and their watch. They want you to use their watch because that's what they know. And that's why Transitions has a full service team of tons of experts, because no one person can know it all.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's the truth, right? I think it's the truth. And we would talk to any of your members, and timing. I said to one of your members, your timing, 80% of life is timing. And we'll wait with you. We'll be here. Just don't wait for it to be like at the last hour when you're tanked so bad that we have to go back and rebuild it, right? So I think timing and 1% better every day. Not perfect. 1% better every day, and teams can get their head around that. It's not saying what did you do wrong all the time. It's saying what did you do right and what can you do 1% better tomorrow. That's our approach. So we do a lot of work with the people in the practice, the team. Yeah. And then they advocate to the patients, and then it's like, wow, that was pretty easy. Well, when you involve them, the dental team members have lots of great input into their job. But if they're never asked, or they're asked and it's not heard, or we don't really know what to ask them because our bus is driving in circles, because as a leader, I have no vision. Right. And I mean, we have to preserve auxiliary in this country. We have a shortage right now. It's serious. And auxiliaries are interviewing leaders. I've never seen anything like it before. People want a decent place to work with some direction and to be able to contribute. They're with each other 60% of their waking hours. So you say you give long answers, I give even longer. I hope that answered your question. Yeah, but to finish, yeah. So these 4 areas of focus: loyalty of your patients, frequency, acceptance, and how many new are you getting. You always need a growth factor coming in to make up for the natural attrition. As far as action. So if I said, someone asked me 2 days ago, so what are Lisa, just make it easy. I'm so tired. What are 4 things that I can do? Like you say, take a picture of your tape record. I said, measure your current metrics, know the numbers, the percentages, and the dollars, know what they mean. Write your goals of which ones are working, which ones aren't, and which ones shock you or not. And then design your game plan. Then get your team involved. Okay, so if we respond, we focus, we act. Now let's go into some tangibles of what we mean by metrics. So the dental practice has 25 key metrics that drive it. And I use the analogy, it's like a whack-a-mole game. If you ever played the gopher game, the whack-a-mole game, 25 gopher heads popping up and down all day long. Have I ever seen a stress-free day in dentistry? No. I don't know if there's such a thing, but I do think there needs to be more positive stress than negative stress. And negative stress, the number one reason for burnout is lack of defined days, lack of preparation, lack of knowing what my role is, and just waiting for filling white space. The pandemic's taught us that we can't just fill the schedule with white space. We now have to balance the procedure, the provider, the operatory setup, and the time. So there's lots of different things. What is productivity? Productivity is what are the dollars that are resulted from the effort of time and energy we put in to particular activities, tasks, our metrics. So looking at the gross production, I can say today, most dentists know their gross production. Okay. So ARP is something I want to talk about a little bit, and that's annual revenue per patient. If you take your gross production divided by your active patients, okay, and I'll define active patients, it's anyone that's been in 2 years, that is your annual revenue per patient. Dentistry's done phenomenal in growing the ARP. There's before this pandemic, there was $13 billion of spending in Canada on dentistry. And only half of that came from employer supplied insurance. The rest came from other sources, patients' pockets, patients' financial arrangements, those kinds of things. The annual revenue per patient average in Canada is $750 per patient per year for a general practice. Dr. Dave, your practice would be higher because you do prosto, right? But the $750 per patient per year, it used to be 5 years ago, it was $500 per patient per year. So where does that come from? That comes from another company that has over 5 million patient behaviors in a software run by how they regard the dental office. So if you just took what's your big umbrella metric is take your ARP and look at your gross production divided by your active patients who've had a visit in the last 2 years. And that's a baseline that we talk a lot about. It's not an exact, it's an overall average. Production by department, production by provider, those are all productivity numbers that are measured. And as a provider, when they measure and contribute to their own productivity, they can grow it by the awareness alone. We'll talk about, I'm just want to show you some examples from Zebra. So here it's a breakdown of productivity by department. These are basic. They're basic to us because we've dealt with them for years. What is the difference is we don't have to go into a practice management system with 23,000 patients in there of everyone since graduation and try to decipher through garbage. And garbage in is garbage out. But the great thing about this is the way the APIs work now, that's an IT guy's word, I call them tentacles. The way the tentacles go in and pull out the data is the data's clean. And it doesn't matter how many patients or what you've got in the practice management because we've written these formulas and these codes to be relevant to pick up for almost every, I think the last one Bronco and I are working on right now is Gold. It's, but it's compatible. There's 12 softwares in Canada. It's compatible with 10 except for Gold and a Mac one and one other one that no one I've never heard of. So we are compatible. But if you look at it, if you look at this, a general practice wants a 60-40 split. 40% of the dollars coming from hygiene, 60% is coming from restorative, unless you've got 2 or 3 doctors, unless you've got 2 to 3 high producing dentists, then sometimes this gets skewed. But if you looked at out of every dollar, what's coming from restorative, what's coming from hygiene, there are so many still. I started my career 30 years ago as a registered dental hygienist, worked chairside, and 20 years ago started bringing hygiene programs to transitions. Still, we've never seen a practice without potential in hygiene unless it's a startup and they don't have enough patients. But there's a lot in hygiene that needs to be done. Hygienists can be tough, but that doesn't mean they're resistant. Hygiene have very self-directed colleges. They have very clear standards that they need to work by. And that their contribution to your practice in the general practice is the lifeblood. If you think of not only in a dollar perspective on hygiene, but hygiene fills in a general practice 80% of the general dentist's schedule in 4 to 6 weeks through patients of record. If a dentist doesn't go to hygiene and do recall exams, that was a big fear when we were rebuilding. What do I do if I don't go to hygiene? We have to find a way for you to go to hygiene, maybe not 20 times a day, right? But there's ways to be able to look at this and see where is our hygiene and our doctor ratio. Production by provider is simply looking at your entire pie of everything coming in and what does each provider contribute to that pie so they can set their own individual goals. Again, these aren't new. It's just a way to look at them quickly without having to run 5-page reports, being able to having to have a calculator, being able to add them all up. Some practice management, please hear me, will print out will output some of this data, but they all have different ways that they do it. So this was a consistent way to be able to pull out what we needed to be able to set in a game plan in place of having a better future. This just happens to be in dollars and percentages right now for these different metrics. Patients. Okay, so from a patient perspective, there's 4 types of patients in dentistry. And this is really, really important. When I ask a dentist how many active patients they have, whether they either don't know, they tell me thousands and thousands of thousands because they look on their practice management system, or they might go into their system and be able to get some kind of report, but they all calculate active patients difference. So for the intents of the 4 types of patients, an active patient is anyone who's been in your practice in the last 2 years. A new patient is a new patient, first time visit, never been there, a new experience, like the things that Gavin and his websites and different things that patient news, all marketing companies figure out. Inactive patients are patients that are 2 to 4 years. And they're the organic growth of the low hanging fruit that practices haven't had time to get to do recall calls, to be able to touch base with them. And then lost patients are patients who are gone forever. Either they've passed away, we've inactivated them, they've asked for a transfer of records. And, you know, it's interesting. The number one reasons why Canadians say they change dental practices is because of indifference. It's not because of our technical ability and how clean our iTero machine is or what hand pieces we use. 68% said they changed service providers because of indifference, and indifference can be solved by human relationship. A simple greeting, knowing their name, your patient experience. That's all what we call the qualitative things that drive the numbers, the percentages, and the growth. There is no reason why a dental practice should not, hands down by itself, be growing 10 to 15% on the top line every single year. And I say that with confidence and with boldness because I can back it up. And that's not even with coaching. That's not even with working with transitions. They're those that focus on being 1% better every day will have a growth factor. If we take 2020 and we take however long you were shut down, Alberta, you know, I think was BC and Alberta were kind of the shortest. 2020 is not going to be called the lost year. What's going to happen is people analyzing last year, if they're looking at your value, are going to annualize those couple of months because dentistry's proven it can rebuild. By this time next year, we will have a stamp that says we are pandemic proof. We came out of this, we lived through it, and we are doing better than we ever have. And patients are coming back to the practice like I never dreamed possible, even more than I ever dreamt possible, for the practices that put the effort into their patients and have kept in contact. So if you look at these trends here, this is a very big practice. We picked one. Paul was kind enough to take the names out to protect the innocent or guilty. I'm not sure which one. But if you look here, we're going to need to see this dip here is where the shutdown was. But you don't want to have this big a red line of patients that are danger patients that are at risk of going to another practice. They've been to you before, they will come back to you again. And it's interesting when you look at the patients that are 2 to 4 years that we call inactive till proven lost, they don't want to be without a name of a dentist. They might not have been there for a while, but they don't want to be on a Saturday night, if they have a toothache, not be a patient of record. So that oftentimes can be a way to reactivate. So we call that a reactivation program. The patients who are overdue called your recall calls, and your active patients are who's been there in the last 2 years. General practitioner that works 32 to 36 hours of dentistry a week needs an average of 1,800 to 2,000 active patients with no playbook. They can have less, they can survive on a lot less. They can survive on 1,600 to 1,800 active patients if they're structured and organized, because they have an 80% retention factor on that. If you know nothing else about your practice, please know your active patients. How many people, not visits. See, one system does visits and gets all the data messed up. How many humans by name have been to you in the last 2 years? Those are what's considered true active. How many of you are, how many of them haven't in 2 to 4? That's inactive. And when we contact them are 4 years or more, they're considered lost. Okay, is there any questions on this one? Any questions on this one, Paul, come up? I just don't want to keep going if someone has questions.
You can keep going, Lisa.
Okay, so looking at the patient demographics, patient demographics by generation. It's interesting, the human resource workplaces before all this, the pandemic started, said the #1 conflict and disruption in team morale is generational diversity. Well, here's what I did a lot of studying on generational diversity. It's a very interesting, fascinating topic to me, because now the next generation, called the Zeds, are all coming past puberty into young adulthood. So there's going to be a whole nother study on them. But generational diversity, here's the reality. Every generation thinks the one before it's old school and the one after it's whacked. It does not matter when you're born. So I think generational diversity is how people behave and make decisions and see things with their belief system is based on when they came into the world and what they're exposed to at different stages of their life. And, so many people give the millennials such a hard time. I go, with a millennial, they were told they're great their whole life. They were asked what they want their whole life. I go, they just need a different type of workplace. Doesn't mean they're not hard workers. But, I often say with a millennial, if you take 5 years off their age without telling them, communicate with them at that level, that's some people go, that's a trick. I go, it's a tip. It's a tip. And the worst thing you do with a millennial is tell them what you did at their age. They do not care. As soon as you start telling a millennial, yes, Gavin's like, yeah, Lisa, I really don't want to hear what you did when you're 18. You got gray hair. You're kind of old. And a millennial always say, well, I think things have changed in 30 years. Yes, they have. So how about come down to, you talk to them at early level. They are the most creative and genius. They come up with things I can't even imagine. When someone said to me, when you're in Mexico at 3 a.m, Gavin, remember I called you? I said, what are we going to do? Hot shot. Are you ready for me? He said, I am ready. I am more than ready. And whatever it takes, we'll figure this out. And he started giving me ideas. And I'm like, wow, you know what? If I would have called someone doing this that was in their 50s, they would have said, let's watch Netflix and drink Chardonnay, because I don't know what we're going to do. And I'm not comparing. I'm just saying generational diversity is real. Look at it in your team. And too much of any of the same is going to be a negative. And don't bring in a millennial and have them polarized with the rest of the team being traditionalists and baby boomers. And I think that's more knowing so that's with the team. Then you say, how do you approach the patients? If I walked out to Aunt Bessie and said, hey, dudette, I'm going to have a bit of a gap. So this is all fun thing. These are all, when I say fun, these are serious, relevant, and things that you can learn about your patient base who writes you checks every year and keeps coming back, and you can learn to work and adapt them. Knowing where your new patients are coming from also can be very valuable. What are you attracting? And you notice we didn't use the regular age intervals of a practice management system because the generations are all mixed together there. We literally can pull out by birth date you've been collecting for years, the generational diversity. And it, boomers and traditionalists have different buying trends. Traditionalists want to pay cash up front. And if from the floorboard of their kitchen floor where they've been storing it for something they deserve, a boomer's like, what's the lowest monthly payment over the longest period of time? The toughest generation to deal with is the generation I am, 66 to 80. They're born with crap detectors growing out of their face. They're the ones that go, are you selling me? I've watched my parents overspend. I've watched my grandparents hoard their cash. And now you want me to spend. This is the key generation, though, in dentistry. 80% of the dental appointments in Canada are being made by the Gen X mother. And she's making them for every generation older and every generation younger. And this is where they sit. This is the generation that has the highest percentage of entrepreneurs. We haven't seen the millennials get to their 40s yet. This has the highest percentage of entrepreneurs born between 1966 and 1980. They're called the latchkey kids. They were the kids that were told to be home by the time the street lights were on. And as long as you came home sober and alive, they didn't really care what you did up to then. So I think this is the things where, Dave, you can bring the people part of this into it. Patients don't have to be a bad thing. Patients can be fun to dance with if you can learn their dance. And as LD Pankey said, well before his time, before I was even born in the early 60s, dentistry will survive for 500 years if it does one thing: never treats a stranger. And if we got to know the person and the human and asked before we told, before we went right to their top two most intimate zones of their body, we will gain trust and loyalty. And patients want to feel that you're empathetic. We could do a whole nother one in the new year on the Canadian trends of a Canadian dental patient. There was an amazing study done with a really good response on why do Canadians choose you and what do they expect from you as their dental practice. Canadians demand empathy, and empathy isn't sympathy. Empathy is you take the time to understand me as a person before you start talking in your code language of your PBMs and your RCTs and your axial inclination of your clear connect liners with your blah, blah, blahs. They want to know that you heard and understand them as a person in their life and show them how dentistry fits into it.
Lisa, a quick question on demographics.
Yeah.
Is there a demographic that I should market my practice to? I am in my mid-30s.
Well, I think you've got to start where you are with the generations that you have. And then when you work with your marketing companies, they can target market to generations for sure. Is there one you should market to? I believe a self-aware, emotionally intelligent 30-year-old can do great with an 80-year-old. But they can't do great if they don't understand 80-year-olds are different than them. So is there a demographic depending on what type of procedures? So for instance, if Dr. Burnham was in prostho and he was dealing with he's replacing missing body parts of teeth, and he's doing that through implants, obviously a millennial's not going to have as many missing teeth as a traditionalist to be able to do that. So I think look at the procedures you love to do, look at the generation, if you're doing, you look at your a dentist, it's interesting. The dentist called me and said, I'm going to take a 2-year ortho course. I go, okay, so you want to do braces. Okay. So have you looked at the demand of all that time, energy, and investment in that training and how you're going to come back and is it going to be right for your practice? We ran a generational report and he had no millennials. He had no one that would need their teeth straightened. And I said, so you might want to consider implants because you've got 70% of your patients over the age of 62. I don't know many 70-year-old that's going to say, sign me up for full brackets from a general dentist when they know traditionalists tend to like specialists more than they tend to want specialists. And they want to know you have lots of letters and you're good friends with other smart people. So I think, is there one generation to market to? It depends what you're passionate about delivering. If you have certain things, or when you're setting your long-term CE goals, is look at what do I have and then work with your marketing person to say, can I target market to be able to maximize my learning and what I like to do the best. That's the best advice I can give. Now, collections and AR. So collect what you produce. Canada's pretty good at collections because Canadians in bad debt for their dentist is the lowest in the globe. Canadians will pay their dentist, believe it or not. It's less than 0.5% bad debt to their dental provider. So, but the thing is, know your financial policy. We're on contactless patient experience right now. There is so much automation. You can have patients swipe on Apple Pay at the chair side before they leave the practice. Look at what is your financial policy. I'm not going to talk about assignment or non-assignment because that's going to be unique to the geography. It's going to be unique to the practice. So back to Dr. Burnham's point, there's not one way. It's what way works for you and what's going to get you what you want. There are assignment practices that do amazing, that know they have to have a full-time insurance claim manager, and that insurance companies make us do their admin now. They put a whole bulk check in your bank, tell you 2 weeks later, and then someone has to go through and kind of figure it out. But I think patients, people, someone asked me, do you think patients will still pay for dentistry? Can I tell you the second thing that our clients tell us they're blown away that's grown? They said our case acceptance is through the roof right now since we've been back. I went, wow. And they said, it's like they're afraid we're going to shut down again. They want to say yes to all of those things that we told them before. And I couldn't have predicted that. I couldn't have predicted that. It's great news, but I think patients wanting to pay, dentistry is the only place you can go and have a service and not pay at the time it's rendered. But I think, do you have financial options and flexible arrangements? Do you work with the third-party financing to get out of the banking business? There's all kinds of different options. Are your collections and insurance claims being paid under 30 days? Accounts receivable, if you're an assignment practice, your total dollars of accounts receivables would probably fall into about 4 to 6 weeks production. If you're non-assignment, the essence is you shouldn't have any accounts receivable. But I say, how about it's not all or nothing. You want to make sure a dollar doesn't go past 31 days. When a dollar's owed 31 days, it gets to 60 and 90. Your chances and the time and energy taken to collect that is going to be significant. And are you sending statements? There's no reason to send statements. The majority of the world doesn't even go to a mailbox anymore for snail mail, and it costs $1 a statement. There's all kinds of other ways to automate, to simplify, to multiply. We've got to simplify, and dentistry right now is there's never been a better time to automate. Never been a better time to go. I never say paperless because there's no such thing. Is this time to go to electronic charting, voice activated for hygiene? Because we've got this contactless guide with COVID, who knows if it's going to be like this and how much longer, but manage your collections. And you measure your collections you can do it every Friday. You can do it every every month. But it's amazing to look at dentists. I say, that's great. You produce 2 million. What do you collect? Well, I don't know. I go, well, what you collect is the deposits that go in your bank that meet your break even and help you pay the bills. It's probably a really good one to know. So when you look at, the zebra says, what's the collections? This happens to be a practice that we chose. You see this practice overall. So this is a snapshot of the last 12 months. Overall of the last 12 months, collections were 101%. People go, how is that possible? I go, because sometimes there's prepays. I go, sometimes if there's a lot of prepays, there's a different way to run it, your collections. But 101% means something's transferred over from the year before that was collected prior to or at time of service. Adjustments, please put a big asterisk here. Dentists, doctors, if you do nothing else, please take a day sheet home in your shoe every night and just make sure you're watching your adjustments. 60% of dentists in this country are embezzled. And David Harris on our embezzlement team, I said, David, is it still that high? He goes, well, let's get past the pandemic and then I'll be able to tell you if it's gotten any worse or better. But they're embezzled because they don't pay attention. They just wanted to be a dentist, make all that work. I'm making great money. My bank seems great. Seems like everything's going well, but the adjustments is the biggest place where embezzlement's hid, and insurance fraud. So know your adjustments. Please make boundaries and decisions with your team. What do they have the authority to give away as far as adjustments? And please, please do not write off copays. It's against the law. It's insurance fraud. I call it's orange suit jail. not dental jail, not colleges, not being guilty till innocent. And it's writing off co-pays. The insurance companies don't have to have actuaries anymore. The insurance companies had every code you've ever posted. They look now, they have computer algorithms for overbilling of one code compared to all the dentists in this part of Alberta. They have our data. They don't need people's brains. They can use their computers, and they send patient surveys on a regular basis. Did your doctor collect did your dentist collect the extra $6? How
Lisa?
long? Yes, go ahead.
I was going to mention that applies also to staff. If you're collecting insurance from staff, there needs to be a copay
Yes.
paid as well. And imagine you have you break your relationship with your staff and they know you've not been collecting. It opens you up to a lot of liability. And there's ways with health spending accounts in your office to administer that. And
Yeah.
things like that.
As an entrepreneur, I have a health spending account too, where you can do that. And you know what? If you're going to reduce, here's really the thing. If you're going to reduce the fee, all the insurance company is saying is put the reduced fee through on the claim, and they will pay their allocated amount. Right. So if there's, it's a tough one, but it's a big deal, and it's being watched now. It's being watched. They're asking patients. They're running algorithms. They're running algorithms to look for above normal billings of certain codes. And right now, the most abused code from the National Dental is specific exams. It's the most abused code in dentistry because it doesn't have a limit of 2 times or 1 time per year. So please, if there's a code for it, use that code. I've had dentists have to pay back hundreds of thousands of dollars in specific exam codes. And it's only because they're using that for an emergency. An emergency is emergency. A recall is a recall. A complete oral evaluation is a complete oral evaluation. So a specific is meant as the catch-all for any of those that don't have a definition or second opinions, or it's tough. People argue with me. I go, don't shoot the messenger. I'm here to give you the right thing to do. Your choice is to choose what you're going to do. Until I often say, don't wait till you get in trouble. It's not fun. It is not fun when Sun Life says we're coming to take your records, because you've got above average billing of every dentist in Alberta on this one thing. The other one is really weird. This came up is child phlebotomies. I don't understand that one, but child phlebotomies, I guess it's dentists doing child root canals, billing them in the 2 weeks before the tooth is going to exfoliate. That probably is a bit debatable. But I think I was shocked on that one. I don't see that code very often. So look at your adjustments. You have categories. Any dollar that's written off, it needs to be named in a category. There's a practice that had someone at the front that gave the whole church group 20% off, and the dentist didn't know for 4 years. I said, I don't know what to tell you. You own that. I mean, but he goes, where's all this money going? I said, you have a big church. She has a big church. And we looked and it was he goes, that's the whole congregation of the church. I said, that's where avoidance and denial leadership isn't going to help you. And it's terrible to find out after the fact. I said, did you give her any guidelines? Is it anywhere written in your employee manual? They don't have the authority to give the church group discounts. And he had no leg to stand on because he had no policies, no manual. Forget employment agreements. How about you just have a manual of how we behave here, what's acceptable and what's not? That's all things that we work with dentists on. And then the accounts receivable. This accounts receivable here, you look at this. Sometimes your over 90 is going to look higher because you've got payment plans. Do I believe you should be in the payment plan business at interest-free payments? No. However, I do know some of you are going to do it, and patients generally honor it. But call a third-party financing with no risk obligation to be able to take that. You get your payment in 2 days. You get your money in 2 days with a bit of a hit, which is going to be less than carrying that over time. And those of you who know banking and know money, the longer you wait for a dollar that's owed to you, the less it's worth every single quarter that you wait for it. So again, know your collections, know your adjustments. What's your adjustment summary? The end of a month, at the end of every month, run an adjustment summary. We can double click in Zebra deeper into this. What is that 102,000? And it's completely itemized. This one I think was mainly senior courtesies. I don't call them discounts because that's for Kmart. That's no longer around. But, you know, do you give accounting reductions on prepay? You can give an 5% accounting reduction for payment up front with cash or check because there's no collection costs. There's no credit card charges. Just if you're going to adjust, know what's the rules and the boundaries of the people checking out. And are you aware of your adjustments and looking at your insurance as well? Your insurance as well. Embezzlement's real. I don't mean to be a scaremonger. It's just real. And it's, you know what the heart wrenching when I get the call is the embezzler is usually the person that the dentist trusted and loved the most. They never take vacation. They come early. They stay late. They have all of the passwords. So please, I'm not here to get you to go back to your team and say, do you embezzle? Please don't do that. That's not going to be, that's a very negative thing to do. But instead of doing that, know your business. Take responsibility for knowing how is your business doing and how can it get better. Is not a consulting thing. That is a basic small business owner, entrepreneur mindset. And if us small entrepreneurs, us solo practitioners are going to stay in business, we've got to step up too. It can't all be on the buying group. It can't all be on a consulting group. It can't all be on give me the latest deal on a piece of equipment because I don't know how to run my business. Look at your top line. And then look at your top line and say, where can your top line grow? It's very difficult to reduce your rent. I've never seen anyone, even in this shutdown, landlords said no when we called them and said, can you give me the rent deal? Can you help me out? Nope, they didn't have to. So I guess manage and look at what you can manage and control, and don't focus on the smaller things in the expense side, except of course, companies like groups like Dave's bringing together. You're getting a reduction of supply costs, not because you're special, it's because there's so many of us. And that's why we want to grow. Someone says, why do you want to grow this buying network? I go, because the more great solo practitioners we have and group practices, the more profitable you'll be. And we haven't even seen the hit on PPE right now. I said to Paul, I want to take a vacation after about second quarter when dentists start getting their accounting statements back from the fiscal. PPE, I don't know. People ask me all the time. I can't tell you. Everyone's different. It was a big stressor. PPE is an increased cost. There's no question. But I think it doesn't have to be a reason why it doesn't have to be a worry or a fear. Let's wait till we find out and we'll deal with it. And then I can't wait, Dr. Burnham, to talk about when we start seeing what the PPE costs coming in and how we can look at the buying group, not for necessarily PPE and a global shortage, because Bronco and I lived the 15 nights with no sleep trying to help on that. It was not easy. But I think looking at the top line as opposed to your bottom line. Okay, hygiene retention. A patient's not loyal if they don't come, if they don't show up, if they're not running through your hygiene of your lifeblood. And electronic communication, the practices that, didn't listen to us when we said collect email addresses, get their text message number. Even traditionalists will tell you a way to call them secondary to their landline. The landlines in homes are gone. So electronic communication data points, the practices on the shutdown had a way to globally put out messages more than their social media. Social media is key. Their website was key. But when they had the database with emails and text messages, they could go out through their softwares and be able to do that. Perio utilization and the intervals of your patient. It's hard to believe 2020, we're still talking about perio programs. Like, you look at this practice. Remember the practice that did 3.4 million, 20% of their revenue was hygiene? Well, here's why. 6% of their hygiene patients are in some form of perio care. With 3,400 active adult patients in the generations you saw, there's more perio than 6%. Hygienists know this. There's 3 types of patients in hygiene: health, disease, and maintenance. And if everyone's being treated as healthy, and look at this practice in everyone's being put into a healthy interval on 6 months, that's insurance driven. And insurance does not care about the health of someone's a patient. They're there as a basic, small financial assistance for preventive care. When someone has more than preventive care, the dental insurance benefits were not designed to pay for that. That's not what they're for. So I think if you look at, it's like a big puzzle. I call it the whack-a-mole game, but we have a picture of a puzzle. You look at this, now I know why the hygiene department's 18 cents on the dollar is because they don't have a hygiene perio program. And everyone's being told to come every 6 months. And if you look at the end here, think of that practice, 1,204 patients, someone forgot to put in they needed an interval. They're lost. They won't show up on any practice management system list. They're lost forever unless we have, and that's why when I was working with Zebra, I said, we got to find the patients with no hygiene interval because there's lots of them in there. And please hear me, this is just the patients in the last 2 years. This isn't all the other 12,000 they have in there that have been at their practice and still sitting in their system, slowing it down where the circle takes longer because there's 20,000 patient records. We go to past due patients. So if you look at, again, Zebra can pull the true past due patients. Past due means they could come in now. And sorry, my picture screen's over top of this. I just can't see these numbers. So if you look at, for instance, 439 active patients are due now. 2 to 6 months overdue, 1,200. Over 6 months overdue, 1,191. Just do your own math, doctors, times $750 here per patient per year. This is organic. It's like a money tree in your practice. You could just really literally pluck the currency that we need to survive, not just to rebuild, but to thrive as a solo practice. Solo practices aren't under producers. They're not losing profit. They're just not accessing what's right in front of them every day. This is like another whole practice within a practice. These doctors tried not to hyperventilate, and I'm sure they went home and drank heavily after our meeting, but in a good way. This is all great news. If I showed there was 0 overdue, you only had 800 active patients, you're a part-time practice, a day and a half a week, that's hard message to deliver. This is all sitting right here. What does it take? It just takes systems. And employees and team will do the systems if they have a clear, structured how process to do the systems, and they have a way to measure their own success, and you have a way to celebrate when they win and help them when they don't win. 1% better every day. Imagine if you, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to ask, is there ways within Practice Zebra to pull out who these patients are? Yeah,
I'm showing you the snapshot, but in the online, like, we'll maybe in the first quarter, we'll do another one to show the live dashboard, or I can, you know what, we don't need to do it as a webinar. Anyone can call us and we will do for your group, Dave, we will do for our group, we will do a complimentary 1 hour snapshot of Zebra and walk them through it. I can go into Zebra and because here's the thing, we present these, my colleague and I, Mel, and what do all doctors do? All dentists go, that can't be right. I love it. I go, so let's verify. I can double click and they'll see the patient's name, address of who these 1,191 people are. And I always joke, I go, just be prepared. Usually the first 20 people on the list by name is your family members and your 3 best friends.
Yeah.
And it always is funny. It always comes up. So yes, it's an interactive tool that's uploaded every night at 2 a.m.
Okay.
So it's in real time.
Do you help? Well, I assume that you guys do help with actionable items, like actionable ways to impact these things. But I guess my question is, and this is for me more than anything, how much effort is involved? Do you know what I mean? Like, because sometimes it's that inertia that gets us in, that lack of inertia that gets us in this bind in the first place. And if I'm on the fence about working with a consultant, you know. Well,
maybe don't think of it, you have to work with anyone. Think of it, let's just know what you have.
Yeah. And
we customize. Not everyone needs everything.
Sure.
Right? You take, look at what you have. So you're on your Christmas and New Year's, we're together, okay? And your system, I'll hold you to that. And you know what? It's not to make people feel bad. Please hear me. It's just, A dentist wants to be in the hole. They want to be in that room. And you know what? If they're making, it's like a dentist said, if I'm making the money and it looks busy and people seem to like us and the team's not asking me for raises or quitting, I can just do dentistry. I go, well, how about if you look at it and say, let's dig a little deeper, let's double click, see what your organic growth is. We could get off a Zebra call. I could give you 4 tips from the because you know what, these are fine, but then what do you do about it? 4 actionable item. There's nothing we hold back. You could go back and you could have a team meeting and do that with your team yourself. Right? So the effort is going to depend on what's the gap in a practice.
Okay.
This practice had about 22 things that almost made the owners hyperventilate because we wrote a strategy, a phase 1 and a phase 2 strategy, because they're like turning a cruise ship, not a powerboat, right? So it's not every practice is this. They have the same metrics, but not every practice needs the same effort. And we start with what's easy, what's the low hanging fruit. Mel and I, when we do these assessments, dentists tell us all the time, we got an increase just by doing the COE. It's like a COE. And you think a patient, even when a patient comes in and has a complete oral evaluation, their education about dentistry is at a heightened level by the nature of going through it. So I think, yeah, let's do it. You've got me on a mission now.
I mean, it's good.
To look at it, when I say to look at it, to know what is our organic. You hear me use the word organic, not because I believe that word means anything in a grocery store. I don't go to grocery stores, but organic is what's right there that if you came to my business, you flew here, Dr. Bergman, you looked at transitions, you would see things I didn't see, but it's right here.
Yeah.
Right? Like when Paul came in, he goes, what about this? And what about this? I go, oh, that's embarrassing. I didn't even see that, but it's different set of eyes. That's what it is. So don't think of it as you're tied to a consultant, because please, we don't like arranged marriages. It's a partnership. Not everyone's the right fit for us. And it's not because of anything other than it has to be the right time and they have to want to do the work. And they need to want to have a better future than their past. The pandemic's helped because for the first time, dentists didn't know what to do when things went from here to zero. But even what we're finding right now, the smaller practices are actually doing okay. They're not as stressed. It's the large practices where the teams are like, this is insane. Can you, like for teams to beg for someone to come in and help them to the dentist, it's a total shift. It's not like the dreaded consultant. It's like, we got to get someone in here to help us and we can't take it. It's just chaos.
Yeah.
And that's because before as a dentist said to me, I'm a result of my own success by accident. And I said, that's why I love dentistry. I've never seen a practice without potential, unless they don't have patience. He just said, we just got too big. And now, like, it's just nuts, right? And the patients pick up on it too, right? And I mean, think about it. You got 30, 40 visits a day. All this COVID stuff is added all kinds of more change onto it. And it made the chaotic practices that were doing okay without a playbook very evidently insane. You can't fill white space. You can't just fill white space. You can't just go to a list and go, put them there, put them there, put them there, put them there. They're going, oh, it's got to be an aerosol generating room. It's got this time between it. And they have to strategically plan now. It's I get excited because it's 20 years of the things that we've been talking about. Now actually people have to do. It's kind of exciting. As sick as that might sound. So yes, you can see every patient by name, by status. So it's not about arguing. This is something that was secretly pulled. It drills right back down into, I can export. If you said to me, Lisa, who are these 1,191 people? I'll go, you know what? Let me just press this export button on Zebra and you'll get an Excel spreadsheet all sorted for you. Right? So this isn't meant to sell consulting. This is meant to get dentists to the next level of know your business. Please, I know you just want to be a dentist, but know the other things and you'll be able to just be the dentist, but don't let it just happen. That's all. Okay. I just in the essence of time. So capacity and volume, really looking at capacity and volume. It's interesting. If you look at a day in dentistry, the day that you've had the most work, the most stress, the most humans is the day you always produce the least. More isn't better. So looking at what are our visits, what's our human capacity here, especially with contactless patient experience, we've got to tell them to come in. Did they do their screening the day before? You know, people ask me why admin teams are so burnt out. I go, the days of just putting a C saying it was confirmed because you left a message are over. We cannot not confirm them with COVID screening now. And that's taking a lot of energy, especially if practices aren't automated. Imagine like the 2-week calls and the 2 days, the reminders. So we can get through this, but it's taught us, you know what, being organized, having systems is not a bad thing. We had to have a system for COVID screening. It just showed its systems actually make things better, more predictable. And you know, if something goes wrong, I often say it's one of 3 things in a well-orchestrated practice. Is it a people problem, a system problem, or a structure problem? And the answer is always one of those 3. Those are easy. Those are simple problems to solve. So I think looking at the capacity and volume, for example, looking at like, this is in our procedure categories, it's saying taking the last year going, okay, what kind of procedure mix and categories of the fee guide did we provide? Is there anything that can change the past? No, but it tells us where we're at. This dentist told me they do 3,000 crowns a year. I went, really? That's amazing. Let's see what Zebra says. I said, well, it's not, they're not being billed as that. So is this a billing issue? Is this a perception issue? Or did you do 3 crowns last Tuesday? And remember, it's not anything other than we're in this together. It's the facts are here. The facts aren't meant to make us feel bad about ourselves. The facts are meant to help us learn to know what we want to build. So I just said, you know, in your pros though, I go in your major and your pros though, it doesn't really look like they're falling into that category. And that's usually where that fee falls into. And then what I did is I showed him this exact graph of outstanding dentistry sitting in the charts. I said, there you go. You've presented that many, but the patient does this in the chair. They haven't booked them. They accepted it clinically, but when they took that walk to the checkout, they said, I got to wait. Can you send a pre-D that's sitting on a pile of someone's desk over here that hasn't been followed through? So again, it's not complicated. It's easy to ask because we do it, but I think it's focusing, you know, consultants come in and change everything. Oh my God, I can't even imagine doing that. Whereas you look at this and you say, let's tweak and grow the things that are the easiest. You start with the least path of resistance, get the people ready, you get the team. When the team goes through this, they understand it too, because they live it. And when they say that can't be right, we just say, okay, let's pull up their names. I want it to be right. Let's look at you. And dentistry knows patients' names like chickmunks, like they store them in their head when they go home. It's no wonder they're a little stressed. Like they know the patient's names. They go, oh yeah, you know what? She was the one that said yes to the bridge and called and canceled. Like they know. So this is all about how do we know what we have and how do we formulate an action plan? And really the only people that have issues with it are the ones that want to wallow and as a victim and life sucks and I can't do any better than I did. So the key, it's interesting here, total visits by department. This just shows you your volume, right? This shows you your volume. This practice thought they had every patient coming at least twice a year. Well, they had 3,400 active. You only had total 3,700 visits. So there's no way everyone came twice. The big one though, that we really focus on and this blows people away is what percentage of your active patients are not attached to your practice. Now, if you look here, 33% of patients, forget about being overdue, forget about 3 months overdue, 4 months overdue, 33% are not even attached. Dentists are blown away. We see these numbers up 50, 60%. We saw it when the rebuild happened, obviously, because practices canceled their patients. Then they had to call them all back in. So a lot showed unscheduled, but please don't think your catch up on pandemic's done till you know that you have 80% of your active patients at least somewhere in your schedule. There is a huge risk for a patient not to be attached to you, to be pulled by the competition if they don't have you, if they don't have something in your practice. 70, but look at this big one. This practice is gonna, like this practice, I don't want to even say it. I don't know. Paul picked this. I didn't. Basically, I'm not blaming Paul. I'm just saying he picked this one. It's a big one. They have $1 million in revenue to be accessed in the next 10 to 12 months. No questions asked. The leader doesn't have to have a lobotomy or go contemplate his navel at a retreat. I mean, the team doesn't have to have like 15 days to like figure out if they like each other. This is $1 million sitting in this practice in the next 10 to 12 months with 5 systems, 5 plays. That's why we love our job. There's lots of possibility. Not to mention their demand for hygiene is 120 hours a week. They should be having 250 hours a week. If everyone just came, if 80% of active patients just came every 6 months. This is without a perio program. So you can see where my gyrating is, the excitement on this one, because this is where success is inevitable. And they've decided I mean, not many business owners would, if I said to you, you're saying save them $20,000 and that's awesome. We increase them another $1 million, you save them another 20 on that $1 million. We're all win. It's a win-win for everyone. Because it does take some costs to increase your production, especially supplies, but it doesn't take your rent doesn't go up. Your lab, maybe, depending on the type of procedures. This practice is, and you know what too, they have enough chairs to do it. Sometimes there's not enough chairs. They've outgrown their space. Nowhere to go but up. I would have no problem signing if you don't get 3 times return on your coaching fee, which is minuscule. It's going to be less than like 10% of what they're going to get in growth in the first year. If you don't get, I mean, they have to do the work. They have to follow the systems. But if you just look at their hygiene, doing basic formulas, these have been around for a long time. It's just not all dentists know them. Not all dentists use them. Or like you said, Dr. Dave, everyone asks, so like, what am I going to have to do different? How much effort is this going to take? The goal is that you lead it. This isn't anything. If I said you need 240 hours of hygiene, it wouldn't be you doing that anyways. It would be you leading the support of your team, making that happen and evaluating it as you go. That's kind of the gist of it. Outstanding dentistry. The average practice has $500,000 sitting in their charts. That's really all I'm going to say about that. I will tell you, there's not a practice management system that runs an incomplete outstanding dentistry report in this country. I've looked at them all. So what we do is we go into the ledger, we go into the system. Now, remember, if practices don't enter in their treatment plans as needed in their system, this isn't gonna populate, but that tells us something else. There's a data entry project to fix. Diagnostic, how many exams were done in the practice? I mean, we have to do exams to have a chance to find conditions in their mouth, and then predetermination follow-up. Pre-Ds, recall, and collections are the 3 most critical things in the practice to focus on that most business teams and admins say they do after when they have time. So we just need to reverse it. We just need to reverse engineer and say those 3 things come first, not at the end. Then you put in your daily operations in your defined role. This is another example of, this is dentistry. We take the outstanding dentistry by dollars. We take it by patient. So to answer your question, Dr. Burnham, if someone says, I have how much in outstanding dentistry? I go, you got 1.4 million, 1,300 people have incomplete treatment plans of 1.4 million. Well, who are they? I go, just a minute. I can double click and every patient's name comes up and it can be imported into an Excel spreadsheet. This puts it into the categories. So you can see here, this is where the perception, I mean, he couldn't believe that 24% of the drill and fill, the basic fillings weren't getting booked. I said, it's all just, it's follow through. And that's where his perception of crowns and a yes in the chair is not always a yes at the business office is the challenge. So dentist does think they have 100% case acceptance because the patients don't look at them and go, nah, I don't think I'm going to do this. They smile and nod. And then it's up to the auxiliary to get the acceptance. How we doing okay, last one. So overhead. I'm not going to talk a lot about this, but I do want to talk about it because the reason solo practitioners need to band together is harder and harder to make their profit. And dentistry, as a cottage industry solo practice, has been known to automatically spit out 20-25% bottom line profit consistently. That's why all the financial people love us. The P&Ls look great. Sometimes when they find out how much humans involved, they wonder what they've done. Especially the investor dentist, where he goes, I got 6 and I'm not making any money. I go, why did you buy 6? He goes, well, the first 2 were easy. I go, yeah, there's only so many days in a week, and absentee ownership's very difficult for an unorchestrated team with no playbook and no game plan. They won't make it. So just looking at what overhead was before all of this, it's going to be interesting to see how we come out. But that's why you excite me, because if you can help with the supplies, we've been saying we've been working with our clients to have their supplies between 6 and 8%. Bronco knows that from his world too, because we've worked together for decades. That's what I can't wait to work on, Dr. Burnham, and see how we can do with the buying group as a percentage of their gross, and looking at their buying trends. It's going to be a very fun thing to do. That's why I'm coming to see you in person with my COVID test and my mask.
Good.
So I think that's pretty well, I mean, we've got this recorded, the PowerPoint, you've got the PowerPoint, right, Dr. Burnham? You're more than welcome to send it. If someone wants to take, I said, do a summary closer shot of if you did nothing else in your practice, what would you do? Seems like there's a lot, but this is it. This is what the successful practices that are thriving with low turnover, they're keeping their auxiliary, they're growing, they're rebuilding, and they have patient loyalty and new patients. They do the right thing. This looks like it takes a lot, but it's a process. It's not an event. And you'll notice where we always start: the leader, style, the management model, and the synergy of the group of people. Then we go into their monitoring and tracking of basic activities. And the team, for years we had teams fill out monitors at the end of the day. You don't have to do that anymore. Any dentist can go on at the end of the day for 15 minutes with their update of their dashboard and see exactly what happened in the day. That's the game changer for dentists, to still be able to do dentistry, do what they love, but still manage the business and lead the business without it being an arduous process. So for all your members, all they have to do is reach out to us, reach out to you, and we will be happy to do a complimentary snapshot. What it is having a contact at the practice that they can access the server. Please hear me, they do not take patient data. It's not that they don't take it and store it somewhere, and I can go through and maybe we'll post it, Dr. Burnham, as the securities agreement. Healthcare patient data is extremely sensitive. It's more the behaviors they take in the metrics as opposed to the patients. The click through to the patient's name is still going into their system, and I'll explain that to you if anyone gets afraid of that. But they can have a snapshot, and we'll do a 30 to 60 minute complimentary call. Paul sets them up. I'm happy to do those. I have senior coaches that will do them, and we will do that all complimentary at no obligation and no fee for people that have signed up for your group, not people that want to, people that have.
Oh, that's great, Lisa. Thanks.
Yeah, I think that's enough for one night.
Yeah.
So any last minute final questions?
I got a couple.
Okay.
You stated that 1,800 to 2,000 active patients is a healthy practice.
Per dentist.
Per dentist. How many support staff and hygienists is required typically for that number?
Oh, okay. So remember, 1,800 patients can be a $500,000 practice or a $1.5 million practice. It's all how it's run. So it's not so much the active patients drive the employee payroll, but I can tell you, so let's say 1,800 to 2,000 with no systems is for a full-time dentist and 4 to 6 days of hygiene a week minimum, without a perio program, with just a healthy preventive program. Okay.
Yeah.
That would generally take 2 admin. And then each dentist is so unique on what they want as far as assistants, but it would generally be 1 dentist and assistant, 2 admin, and at least 8. Really, they should be doing 8 to 10 days of hygiene a week, but most of them are doing 4 to 6.
Okay. Another question is, what is a good target number for overhead in a general dental practice?
60 to 65%.
Okay.
That's your fixed, your variable, and that's with the owner being paid as an associate. So even though the healthiest way is for a dentist to pay themselves the 40% net lab, like if they were going to go, if they were an associate, then what's left over is for them as an owner.
Okay.
But 60 to 65%, and I really will know probably March or April or May. And Dr. Dave, I want to do a project on that, of looking at some overhead changes that the pandemic caused, not because of the shutdown. We can't do it now because the production's lower. But I really want to work with you on some benchmarks for supplies. I have some ideas.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. And the last question, you mentioned garbage in, garbage out. I'm not sure that 100% of the data in my PMS is entirely reliable. How do you ensure that unreliable data doesn't skew results?
Okay. So what happens, the PMSs all are so different. When you do the dashboard, the issues with the PMS come up, and oftentimes it's not put a system in place. There needs to be some sort of cleanup. Okay. So garbage in and is garbage out. If, for instance, if we get the zebra and the case acceptance measures 0, there's no outstanding dentistry, we know that's impossible. So that's where then we go back into, you know what it is? It's a way to know if your practice management system is working for you or not, and how things are being entered. One of them showed that the dentist had 500 lost patients last month. Well, that wasn't true, but what happened is someone went in and just started changing active to inactive. They were a new employee, no one trained them, and they thought inactive meant they were a real patient. They got it mixed up. So 500 patients were inactivated in the practice management system, and it would have never been found had we not run a dashboard to show this can't be right. So please, it's not about the dashboard in a contest of being right. The dashboard is a tool to quickly pull out the relevant things for the dentist, and then we know what's wrong with the practice management. Right now, when you say to a dental, we've been doing this 20 years, and we say to a front desk team, okay, you got 20,000 active patients listed in this system. Someone needs to do a purge. Oh, wow. It's like they break out into hives, and it never gets done. A purge is all the patients that haven't been here in 5, 8, 10, 20 years need to be taken out of here. No wonder dental offices are buying new servers and having slow computers. It's got people in there from every human since graduation. So now we can leave the practice management systems the way they are, go and pull, like Recall Max does the same thing. It's a phenomenal operational system for recall. It just deals with hygiene retention though. You know what I mean? So it's just giving up on the practice management systems and getting your practice management system. If it was any other small business or any other healthcare, would have everything. It'd even have our overhead in there, but that's a whole different bookkeeping system. So it's, how do we go in? It's automating. How do we go in and automate, and how do we know what's going on? So, and then you don't worry about your practice management system being right or wrong, because that's a big worry, and it's hard to fix.
Okay.
They'd have to shut down.
Okay, that takes us to the end of the questions.
Okay, great. I think remembering the 3 rules of change, keep going dentistry. We're very proud of you. We can do this. We're going to prove it will never be shut down again. As I tell Paul, if dentistry gets forced shut down, I'll be on the lawn with the drama teacher on national TV. That's my dream. talking about how we need dentistry. And remember, your rules have changed. If something's working, do more. If it's not, do different. And if you don't know, as a member of this group, take up Dr. Burns and Bronco and I's offer and find out. Doesn't mean you have to do anything, but at least know.
Thanks so much, Lisa. Lisa, you know what? This is what Bronco and I call the hidden gem of the dental buying network. It's almost
thank
the
you.
loss leader is the supplies, is the practice growth. And it's also, we've got a few other things for marketing and stuff on there as well. And Ripe Resolution with Gavin included.
Yeah.
Podium, other things like that. But, if we can raise that top end, then we're really turning the dial for dentists, for the independent practices. So this kind of exposure to our group is awesome. Thanks.
Oh, thank you. I'm proud to be part of your group, and anyone can call our office. Just make sure they say they're part of your group, and because Bronco knows they get special treatment and they get courtesies.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks,
Gotta
everyone.
keep dentistry going.
Thanks, everybody. This is great. Everyone have a good night.
Okay, miss you guys. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Likewise.